the laboratory, Collaboration Against the Lawless, will be delivered by Professor V.I. Akinmoladun of the Department of Oral and Maxillofacial Surgery on behalf of the Faculty of Dentistry. Ladies and gentlemen, may I inform you that the academic procession will soon file in. And when the academic procession files in, you are expected to please rise and remain standing until the academic procession takes its seat. Also, you are please expected to rise and remain standing when the national anthem and the University of Ibadan anthem are being rendered. Furthermore, this lecture is being broadcast live on our radio station, UI Radio Diamond 101.1 FM. It is also being streamed live on UI website with the address www.live.ui.edu.ng, as well as on our YouTube channel at UI Premier TV. May I inform you that once the lecture commences, pacing the hall won't be permitted. It's an hour lecture. It is expected that we give the lecture the desired decorum. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, inaugural lectures in the University of Ibadan are very significant to our reputation, particularly in the pursuance of excellence in our day-to-day academic activities. We will therefore appreciate your cooperation by observing a solemn atmosphere throughout this lecture. We will appreciate it if you do not, once again, let me reiterate that if you do not move during the lecture, and if you have to use the restrooms, you can use the exit by the flanks of this hall. The Vice Chancellor, Professor Kayode O. Adibowale, MNI FAS, deeply appreciates your presence at this lecture. Thank you, and you are most welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, can we please rise as the academic procession files in?
Acting Vice Chancellor, Research, Innovation and Strategic Partnerships, the Registrar, the Bursar, the University Librarian, Provost of the College of Medicine, Provost of the Postgraduate College, the Dean of the Faculty of Dentistry, Deans of other faculties and of students, Directors of institutes and centers, Heads of departments, Vice Chancellors of other universities, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. The 582nd University of Ibadan Inaugural Lecture will be delivered this evening by Professor Victor Ifeolu Akinmoladun of the Department of Oral and Maxillofacial Surgery on behalf of the Faculty of Dentistry. Professor Victor Ifeolu Akinmoladun was born to Dr. Olufemi and Mrs. Adefolurin Akinmoladun in Ondo State. Both parents were teachers before proceeding to the United States for further education in the late 60s. He spent his early years with his grandparents who were farmers in his hometown, Ondo, while his parents were studying abroad, and had his primary school education at CSE Primary School, Okeigbala, Ondo, and his secondary education at St. Thomas Aquinas College, Akure, between 1977 and 1982. He was admitted to the Obafemi Awolowo University, Ile-Ife, to study dentistry in 1983 and obtained a bachelor's degree in dentistry, BCHD, in 1989. He had his housemanship at the University of Benin Teaching Hospital, Benin City. His National Youth Service Corps program took place at the General Hospital, Ikeja, Lagos. He worked briefly at the Lagos State Hospitals Management Board before proceeding to the United Kingdom for specialist training. He is a fellow of the Royal College of Surgeons of England, as well as a fellow of the Royal College of Surgeons of Ireland. Professor Akinmoladun is also a fellow of the West African College of Surgeons and a one-time member of the board of the Faculty of Dental Surgery of the college. Upon his return to Nigeria after his sojourn at the United Kingdom, he joined the services of the Ondo State Hospitals Management Board as a consultant at the then State Specialist Hospital, Akure, before he secured an appointment with the College of Medicine of the University of Ibadan. He was promoted senior lecturer in 2008. He obtained the Masters of Science degree in Chemical Pathology from this university in 2008. He also acquired a certificate in Immunology and Molecular Laboratory Techniques from Makerere University, Kampala, Uganda in 2012. He later obtained a PhD in Basic Science Immunology of the University of Ibadan in 2021. Professor Akinmoladun teaches tumor immunology to MSc students of the Department of Immunology, University of Ibadan. Professor Akinmoladun was promoted to the rank of professor at the University of Ibadan in 2019. He has co-authored well over 70 articles in both national and international journals and 2 books chapters to his credit. He was a recipient of the University of Ibadan Senate Research Grant in 2012 and was also awarded the Tertiary Education Trust Fund Research and Training Grant in 2014. He is a recipient of several Smile Train United States Travel Fellowship Grants to participate in cleft lip and palate workshops, trainings, and conferences. Professor Akinmoladun has served the University of Ibadan in various capacities. He was sub-dean postgraduate in the Faculty of Dentistry and is currently the head of the Department of Oral and Maxillofacial Surgery. He was a regional coordinator Southwest, continuing medical education of the Nigerian Medical Association and a reviewer to several national and international journals, and an examiner to the dental schools in Nigeria and the West African College of Surgeons. He was the deputy chairman of the Medical Advisory Committee between 2015 and 2016, and the then chairman, director of clinical services, research and training between 2016 and 2020 at the University College Hospital, UCH, Ibadan. He has attended several administrative and management leadership courses and currently holds the Policy, Strategy and Leadership course, PSLC's certificate of the National Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies, NIPS, Kuru. Apart from service to the university and the University College Hospital, Professor Akinmoladun is a pastor at the Redeemed Christian Church of God, RCCG, and a member of the Board of Management of the Redeemers Health Center, Ibadan. He is a member of several learned societies, including the Nigerian Association of Cleft Lip and Palate, British Association of Oral and Maxillofacial Surgeons, International Association of Oral and Maxillofacial Surgeons, African Organization for Research and Training in Cancer, and the Nigerian Society for Immunology, among many others. Professor Akinmoladun was secretary of the International Association of Dental Research, Nigerian Division, and the Nigerian Association of Oral and Maxillofacial Surgeons. His research is focused on three main areas. First, orofacial tumors. Second, cleft, lip and palate and reconstructive surgery. And thirdly, facial trauma. He had investigated humoral immunity status and trace metal levels in head and neck cancer, serum levels in single carbon metabolism vitamins were also assayed in head and neck squamous cell carcinoma patients. Additionally, he interrogated the serum levels of pro-inflammatory cytokine as surrogate for inflammation in head and neck squamous cell carcinoma patients. His work with other colleagues on the computed tomography of craniofacial fibrous dysplasia remains the only one from Nigeria to date. I thought we will appreciate him. Professor Akinmoladun's current research efforts are in the study of surgical oncology and molecular immunology of oral squamous cell carcinoma. He is happily married to Dr. Janet A. Akinmoladun of the Department of Radiology, College of Medicine, and the University of Ibadan. And the marriage is blessed with a wonderful and promising daughter in Inioluwa. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, and I invite Professor Victor Ifeolu Akinmoladun to deliver his lecture, which is titled The Scalpel and the Laboratory, Collaboration Against the Lawless. Professor Akinmoladun.
The Vice Chancellor, Deputy Vice Chancellor Administration, Deputy Vice Chancellor Academic, Deputy Vice Chancellor Research, Innovation and Strategic Partnerships, the Registrar, Librarian, the Bossa, Provost of the College of Medicine, Provost of the Postgraduate College, Dean of the Faculty of Dentistry, Deans of other faculties and of students, Directors of institutes, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I'm immensely grateful to God for the opportunity to stand before this august gathering to deliver this lecture on behalf of the Faculty of Dentistry, College of Medicine of this university. Is this the 582nd Inaugural Lecture of the University of Ibadan? the fifth in the series for the 2024-2025 session. I appreciate the Dean, Faculty of Dentistry, for nominating me. This is the 14th inaugural lecture from the Faculty of Dentistry and the fifth from the Department of Oral and Maxillofacial Surgery. The Ibadan Dental Program will be celebrating its 50th anniversary this year. I pay tribute to the founding fathers of the program, especially the first head of dentistry, Professor J.O. Daramola, who was the first from the department and indeed the faculty to deliver an inaugural lecture. His contributions and those of others, Professor H.A. Ajagbe and Dr. B.O. Abiose, have left an indelible mark on oral and maxillofacial surgery in Ibadan, and indeed dentistry as a whole. Even though inaugural lectures have been part of academia for centuries and are seen as a significant milestone in an academic's journey, scholars are not unanimous in their expectations about what an inaugural lecture should contain. As Afibu observed, it is still a matter of debate what an inaugural address actually is about or should be about. He made the suggestions about what may be considered for content. The last of these suggestions was that the inaugural lecture could be anything under the sun, on which the professor considers that he has something stimulating to tell his audience. However, a senior colleague more recently described the inaugural lecture as a meeting of town and gown, where candles burnt in the night, when others are sleeping, resting, or engaging in some recreational activities are exhibited. It is also noteworthy that the University of Ibadan clearly states, among other things, that the lecture is expected to be a sophisticated balance between specialist and general public-friendly exposition. Therefore, I shall speak about oral and maxillofacial surgery, unveiling the relationship between the scalpel, the laboratory, and the lawless. As I provide these contexts, I will offer relevant information on the existing body of knowledge in the field and highlight my contributions. What is oral and maxillofacial surgery? When I introduce myself by my specialty, I get asked very often to come again. Or sometimes some will ask, oral and what surgery did you say? Oral and maxillofacial surgery refers to the diagnosis and surgical management of diseases of the mouth, jaw, face, and neck. The scope of practice includes facial injuries, tumor correction, surgical correction of jaw discrepancies and facial deformities, correction of abnormal jaw relationships, oral and facial infections, and implant surgery, amongst others. From a historical point of view, what could be regarded as the beginning of modern-day oral and maxillofacial surgery started with physicians, such as Simon Houlihan and others, who limited their practice to conditions in and around the mouth. However, it was James Garretson who was credited with defining the scope of the specialty in his publication titled A Treatise on the Diseases and Surgery of the Mouth, Jaws, and Associate Parts. In Nigeria, the earliest practitioners include Mr. Banks, Mr. Lam, and Mr. Otti, all of whom practiced at the maxillofacial unit of the Ahmadu Bello University Teaching Hospital in Kaduna during the Nigerian Civil War. Incidentally, Mr. Lam was one of my trainers at the Addenbrooke's Hospital and the Peterborough District Hospital in Cambridgeshire, United Kingdom. Others who qualify to be addressed as pioneers in the field in Nigeria include Professor John Fox Taylor, Professor J.O. Akiosi, and Professor A. Nwoku. The choice of oral and maxillofacial surgery as my specialty. I had chosen the University of Ife, now Obafemi Awolowo University, for my bachelor's degree on the advice of my father. I applied to study medicine and surgery. However, at the then compulsory admission interview at Ife, one of the panelists asked me if I would consider dental surgery if I was offered the course. I hardly knew anything about dental surgery. While I was still wondering what to say, the question was repeated. I simply responded that I would accept the course if I were given the choice. Two of my colleagues and close friends who are seated in the audience today had given similar accounts of how they were admitted into Ife dentistry in the same interview in a similar fashion. Although I knew early as an undergraduate that I wanted to become an oral and maxillofacial surgeon, it was not without the direct and remote influence of the teacher, Professor S.A. Odusanya. He was the only teacher of the subject while I was a clinical student, and he made the specialty most attractive through his lectures, his courage, and his distinguished personality. The choice of title for this lecture, The Scalpel, the Laboratory, Collaboration Against the Lawless. Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, I chose this title because it encapsulates what a significant part of my clinical practice and research efforts have been all about over the years, the scalpel. Etymologically, the word scalpel is from the Latin word scapulum, which simply refers to the surgical knife. While it is the name of an instrument specifically associated with surgery, it also symbolizes the precision and skills needed and demonstrated in the field. Shells, razor-like leaves, and bamboo shoots may all have been in use at one point or the other as early surgical instruments. Thumbnails for newborn circumcisions, plant stems for scarification and facial marks, and shark's teeth for venesection. All of these served as the first set of sharp tools for surgical procedures on the human body. According to Kirkup, 1995, circumcision, one of the earliest recorded elective surgeries, was carried out with the use of sharpened stones. The scalpel has been used symbolically not just in medicine, but in shamanism and spirituality. In shamanism, a spiritual practice that involves a practitioner interacting with the spirit world through an altered state of consciousness, it is believed that the scalpel represents the cutting away of negative energies and entities. It is also often seen as a tool for spiritual growth, helping individuals to release negative attachments and move forward. The Holy Book, in one of its modern translations, also referenced the scalpel thus: His powerful word is sharp as a surgeon's scalpel, cutting through everything, whether doubt or defense, laying us open to listen and obey. Hebrews chapter 4, verse 12, the Myanmar Standard Bible Version. I wish to state today that the scalpel is presented as a three-in-one entity: the instrument, the person, and the specialty. The laboratory. The dictionary defines the laboratory as a room or building equipped for scientific experiments and research. However, for this lecture, the laboratory is not a building or a room, but the persons in the room, the equipment in the room, and the activities that take place in the room. The role of the laboratory in addressing health issues began many decades ago with the examination of body fluids for pathogens, but has now moved to advanced diagnostics and research capabilities, playing a crucial role in understanding of the prevention and treatment of diseases. Collaboration. Collaborative research or activities thrive when multiple parties or diverse specialties work together to generate new ideas, advance scientific knowledge, foster innovation, and find solutions to societal challenges. The lawless. Lawless means not to be governed by or obedient to laws. Lawlessness refers to a state or disorder, anarchy, unruliness, chaos, and lack of control. It is characterized by the absence of or disregard of laws and regulations. Today, the lawless here is a cell or group of cells or disease condition or conditions known as cancer. It is a state in which a cell or group of cells defy the laws guiding the normal processes of cell growth, cell division, and cell death. The scope of my practice and research. The renowned French surgeon Ambroise Paré said, 5 things are proper to the duties of a surgeon: to take away that which is superfluous, to restore to their places such things that are displaced, to separate those things which are joined together, to join that which is divided, to supply the defects of nature. In the next few minutes, I shall attempt to provide evidence of my modest attempt over the years to practice some of the things that are proper to the duties of a surgeon. Restore to their places such things that are displaced, facial injuries. Viewers' discretion is advised here because of one or two of the images that have been used. Injuries remain one of the most significant causes of death in the world, sustaining a relatively consistent rate of 7.3% of global disability-adjusted life years between 1990 and 2019. The American National Trauma Data Bank report of 2016 revealed that approximately 25% of all injuries involve the face, with a global incidence of approximately 8 million cases. Sub-Saharan Africa observed a remarkable 117% increase in the incidence of facial fractures between 1990 and 2017, a period that coincides with the emergence and sustained use of motorcycles as a means of transportation in the region. In Nigeria, several studies have revealed that the cause of facial injury is related mainly to road traffic crashes. Also, alcohol, often consumed through different local medicaments and concoctions that go by various names in the Yoruba language, agbojedi, ọ̀pá-ẹ̀yìn, fogana, and so on, has been implicated. These products are frequently sold by vendors in motor parks, thus making them readily accessible to commercial drivers and motorcyclists. These concoctions and the various brands of alcohol sold in foil sachet and pocket-sized bottles are popular among this demographic. Added to the menace posed by the consumption of these readily available substances is an avalanche of poorly trained and sometimes inexperienced commercial cyclists, popularly called Okada riders, who overspeed, overload, and disobey traffic rules. In light of this, facial injuries abound. Against the backdrop of previous studies in Nigeria, my colleagues and I prospectively investigated the pattern of mid-face injury in patients presenting to the University College Hospital, Ibadan. It was observed that motorbike-related accidents accounted for 45.5% of all injuries, making it the single most important factor in the etiology of middle face fractures in Nigeria. We also evaluated the use and the influence of restraints and protective devices on the severity of road traffic maxillofacial injuries. Although this study was conducted during the period when the regulation regarding the use of protective gears was being enforced, we reported a low rate of use of the device. But paradoxically, it was noted that the use of devices made no difference to severity of injuries. The improper use and poor quality of restraints and helmets were responsible for the perceived low rate of protection. In a related study, looking at the severity of facial injury and the concomitant injuries associated with it, we identified head, that is brain injury, as the commonest concomitant injury in severe facial injuries. We also analyzed road traffic crashes involving pedestrians. 46 individuals, consisting 22.9% of all the victims of road traffic crashes seen within the study period were pedestrians, and 17% of the victims had a fatal outcome. We concluded that road traffic crashes involving pedestrians and resulting in maxillofacial injuries were common, and injuries were often severe, and fatal outcomes were frequent. To join that which are separated, and to supply the defects of nature, orofacial clefts. Orofacial clefts are congenital anomalies characterized by gaps or splits in the facial structure, particularly in the lip palate of face. Types include isolated cleft of the lip, cleft of the palate, cleft lip and palate, and facial clefts. The global prevalence of the condition varies with geographical locations. In Nigeria, the occurrence has been estimated to be 1 per 2,000 live births. Some of the risk factors associated with the condition include family history and genetic mutations. Other predisposing variables are environmental factors such as tobacco, alcohol, and drug use, exposure to harmful radiation and viral infections, usually rubella and measles virus during pregnancy. Other possible risk factors are high paternal and maternal age. While the majority of cases, more than 70%, are isolated conditions, cleft has been linked to over 300 syndromes. Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, as it is with several health challenges in Nigeria, the causes of cleft have often taken cultural shades, influenced by our belief system. The condition is frequently perceived as a punishment by the gods for the mother's infidelity or for her being a witch. Some believe it is a result of mother's encounter with demons during pregnancy, or the effect of walking in the sun during pregnancy, and so on. The father is hardly ever considered a likely cause of cleft. Painfully, in light of these perceptions, some of these babies are seen as bad omens and may die in the first few days or weeks of life, sometimes aided in the process. My colleague and I reported a case of transverse facial cleft in which infanticide was suspected. Please permit me to pay tribute to the then project lead and coordinator of the UCH cleft team, our esteemed teacher, Professor O.M. Oluwatosin. Smile Train USA, a major sponsor of cleft care in Nigeria, and the Federal Teaching Hospital Gombe cleft team, ably led by my friend, Dr. Obi Akinmoladun, for their contributions to my clinical practice and research in cleft management. We have conducted research into several aspects of orofacial clefts and reported that the pattern of distribution of clefts in Nigeria was similar to those described in the literature for the Black African population. No antenatal predisposing factors were identified in the population we studied. We also reported that the multidisciplinary care concept for cleft management was the exception in Nigeria and most parts of Africa rather than the rule. Thankfully, a more recent publication showed improved awareness of this concept, although the current model in care is described as a comprehensive cleft care model. To take away that which is superfluous, orofacial tumors. The superfluous are tumors, diseases characterized by abnormal cell growth, abnormal cell behavior, and disruption to tissue architecture. Tumors are generally divided into two groups: the benign, slow-growing, and usually non-invasive type, and the malignant, aggressive, lawless type with ability to spread to distant locations. Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, kindly permit me to focus the searchlight on the malignant, as it is the focal point of this inaugural lecture. The collaboration of the Scalpel and the laboratory is actually against cancer, the lawless. Biology of cancers, the hallmarks. What are the hallmarks of cancer? Hanahan and Wimberg in 2000 described the features that define the lawlessness of the disease, or what was referred to as the hallmarks of cancer, and they are evasion of programmed cell death. Normal cells at a certain stage, particularly when damaged irreparably, will naturally die. The ability to become immortal through resistance to programmed cell death is well recognized in cancer cells, enabling replicative immortality. While normal cells possess a limited proliferative potential and will stop dividing at some point, cancer cells proliferate indefinitely. Sustained angiogenesis. The growing tumor tissue has an increased need for oxygen and nutrients to keep expanding. It is able to provide this through formation of new vasculature by producing and releasing pro-angiogenic substances, that is, blood vessel forming signaling molecules. Self-sufficiency in growth signals. Typically, cells of the body require mitogenic factors such as hormones and other molecules that act as signals for them to grow and divide. Cancer cells, however, grow without these external signals. Insensitivity to anti-growth signals. Cancer cells are generally resistant to growth-preventing signals, which operate in normal cells to maintain cellular homeostasis. Tissue invasion and metastasis. Metastasis is the ability to invade, settle, and grow in distant locations. This is one of the main features of cancer and a major cause of cancer-related death. The features are the hallmarks of the lawless, irrespective of the anatomical location: head and neck, breast, cervix, prostate, and so on. In 2011, Hanahan and his colleague published an update to the original hallmarks. In this update, they presented evidence supporting the central role played by the immune system as a barrier to cancer development. They also made observations suggesting that human tumors develop the capacity to avoid the immune system. Moreover, they identified inflammation as an enabling and tumor-promoting characteristics. I shall proceed to discuss other aspects of the biology of cancers and will return to inflammation and immune cancer interaction shortly. Biology of cancers, genetics and epigenetics. Cancer is a disease or group of diseases that begin with genetic mutations and/or epigenetic alterations occurring in specific cells. Although the biological processes involved in cellular transformation, the evolution and spread of tumors are many. These two are particularly crucial. While the underlying cause of many cancers can be attributed to inherited or acquired genetic mutations, cancer pathogenesis varies greatly depending on the tissue or the organ that is affected and the molecular genetic mechanisms involved. Noteworthy also is the fact that mutations are continuous, mutations are spontaneous, and mutations are random. Consequently, a certain irreducible possibility of cancer risk does exist, regardless of circumstances, since mutations cannot be absolutely avoided and are part of the consequences of the fundamental limitations on the accuracy of DNA replication. Therefore, if we live long enough, there are some possibilities that everyone could develop one cancer or the other in a lifetime. For those who may be concerned, you can fix that age for 150 years. Epigenetic activities as against genetic mutations refer to molecular mechanisms that produce heritable, stable, but reversible changes in gene expression without causing alteration in the DNA base sequence. Examples of these are methylation of DNA and histone modification. Epigenetic aberrations can activate pro-tumor genes and silence tumor suppressor mechanisms. The effects of environmental factors such as diet, exposure to certain chemicals, and lifestyle choices such as smoking and alcohol may also be epigenetically expressed. Additionally, DNA methylation is strongly linked to the maturation, polarization, differentiation, and functions of immune cells. Therefore, epigenetic changes can also affect the immune system, leading to impairment of the host immune defense system and delayed or non-recognition of cancer cells by immune cells. These facts expose the interrelatedness of the effects of the risk factors and the crosstalk between epigenetics and the immune system in the development of cancer. Cancer is a major societal, public health, and socio-economic problem in the 21st century. It is responsible for 1 in 6 of all deaths, 16.8%, and 1 in 4 deaths, 22.8%, from non-communicable diseases worldwide. Head and neck cancer is ranked at between 6th to 10th most common cancer in the world. This wide-ranging ranking is largely the result of varied anatomical sites included in the site definition of the disease by different authors. Typically, however, head and neck cancer refers to malignancies of the upper aerodigestive tract, which includes oral cavity, oropharynx, hypopharynx, larynx, paranasal sinuses, and the nasal cavity. It is a heterogeneous group of malignancy, but with more than 90% being squamous cell carcinoma. Noticeable geographic variations exist in the disease burden. For example, a high prevalence has been observed in South and Southeast Asia, with India accounting for about 1/3 of the total global burden of oral cancer. The different social customs and practices are responsible for regional variations in the disease incidence. The high rate in Europe has historically been linked to heavy consumption of tobacco and alcohol, whereas the habit of chewing areca nut leaves, raw with slake lime and tobacco, a mixture known as pan or betuquid, and kept inside the cheek for slow release, is the single most important factor in the Indian subcontinent. The involvement of human papillomavirus, HPV, in head and neck cancer was discovered in the more recent past and has resulted into the division of tumors in this region into HPV positive and HPV negative groups. HPV-related oral and oropharyngeal cancers are primarily caused by specific high-risk strains of the virus, particularly HPV 16 and 18, and are more common in younger populations. HPV positive and tobacco-related oral cancers differ significantly in prevalence and prognosis, while the tobacco-related oral cancers are strongly linked to chronic tobacco use and are more prevalent in older populations. HPV-related cancers are more in the young age group, tend to have a better prognosis and higher survival rates. Additionally, it is associated with unconventional alternative sexual practices, specifically oral sex. Furthermore, although cancers of the head and neck are more prevalent and have poorer outcomes in individuals with low socioeconomic status, this risk is not fully explained by smoking and alcohol. Poor nutrition may well be a major component of the risk. Diets account for roughly 30% of cancer-related deaths, second only to smoking. This is a modifiable risk factor. However, Because of the complex nature of eating behavior and the chemical heterogeneity of foods, it remains very difficult to ascertain what aspects of diet, in what quantities, and over what period are responsible for modifying the risk. It is noteworthy that several studies have established a protective relationship between diet and head and neck cancer, particularly oral squamous cell carcinoma. In Nigeria, available data on the burden of oral cancer suggests that though relatively rare, this disease accounts for 36.8% of head and neck malignancies, with about 2,000 new cases and 800 mortalities recorded annually. The survival rates for head and neck cancer vary significantly across geographical location, tumor sites, and most importantly, stage and diagnosis. However, a 5-year survival globally across board stands at about 50%. Survival is certainly poor in Nigeria, due largely to late presentation, infrastructural deficits, cost of treatment, dearth of expertise that hamper adequate and appropriate investigations and optimum treatment. Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, with your kind permission, I shall now return to inflammation and tumor immune system interactions. That the immune system interacts with cancer cells with a view to eliminating them had long been suspected and investigated. Jean-Louis Marc Alibert inoculated himself with breast cancer cells in the hope of reversing soft tissue sarcoma. In 1909, Paul Ehrlich suggested that the immune system surveys the body and prevents the development of carcinomas that will otherwise occur with high frequency. Remarkably, Brunet and Thomas independently supported this position in 1957 and 1959 respectively. Additionally, reports of increased incidence of a variety of cancers in individuals on immunosuppressive therapy or immunodeficient persons support the idea. What is the relationship between inflammation and cancer? The relationship can be described as somewhat conspiratorial. Inflammation is an inherited physiological response, functioning as a defense mechanism to fight pathogens, limit tissue damage, and promote tissue repair. While this is positive, in some situations the mechanism is deranged. Inflammation becomes chronic and damaging. Inflammation is well recognized as a hallmark of cancer, a tumor-enabling and tumor-promoting condition. Many cancers are known to be induced by chronic inflammation, while many more are sustained by it, head and neck cancer inclusive. Free radicals, a group of highly reactive and unstable molecules implicated in many chronic diseases and cancer, through oxidative stress and DNA damage, can also induce tumor development through chronic inflammation. Additionally, some environmental pollutants such as cigarette smoke and some heavy metals contain large amounts of free radicals or sometimes stimulate the body cells to produce large amounts of it, culminating in persistent inflammation. The tumor microenvironment is also rich in chronic inflammatory cells and mediators that support angiogenesis and cancer cell growth. Since inflammation is a major player in cancer development, it will not be out of place to consider aspirin and other non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs in cancer prevention. And there are numerous studies on the use of non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs in cancer. Unfortunately, they show inconsistent and contradictory findings, with some reporting an increased risk in certain types of cancer and others showing a reduction. It is also pertinent to state that the increase or decrease in risk depends on the type of cancer. Moreover, even within the same cancer type, the effects may vary among molecular subtypes. As a result, the use of aspirin and other non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs in cancer prevention is yet to be fully determined. The immune system and cancer. Is a failed immune system to blame for cancer? The natural defense system, like all law enforcement agents, is expected to regularly carry out surveillance, identify any cell showing tendencies towards lawlessness, arrest and prosecute it. The immune system, through a multidimensional mechanism known as immunoediting, provides a balance between immune surveillance, cancer prevention, and progression. through three primary phases known as elimination, equilibrium, and escape. In the elimination phase, emerging tumor cells are successfully recognized and eliminated by the immune system. In the equilibrium phase, the immune system controls the evolution of the tumor and may eventually eliminate all tumor cells, leading to an outcome similar to the elimination phase. In a second scenario, however, the constant interaction of the immune system with tumors over a long period of time may actually edit or sculpt the phenotype of the developing tumor, resulting in immune selection of a tumor that has been shaped into less immunogenic states. Tumor cells that are no longer susceptible to immune attack then emerge and progress into the immune evasion process termed escape. So, while cancer is not exactly the direct consequence of a failed immune system, a compromised, corrupted, or settled system, to use a local slang, significantly contributes to cancer development, that is, escape of the lawless from custody. It is an understanding of the compromises that result in the escape from custody that forms the basis for immune or targeted therapy against cancers. The Scalpel laboratory collaboration. My colleagues and I have conducted research into some aspects of the disease and reported significantly low serum levels of antioxidant vitamins and minerals in our oral cancer patients relative to controls. In addition, we also reported in a cohort of head and neck cancer patients a significant reduction in total antioxidant potential, a measure of the combined ability of all antioxidants present in the biological sample to neutralize free radicals. Low levels of total antioxidant potential connotes oxidative stress, which potentially drives cancer development and progression. We also carried out a study to determine the state of humoral immunity in a group of oral cancer patients by assaying serum immunoglobulin levels. The levels of some acute phase proteins were also determined. Immunoglobulin A and ceruloplasmin were significantly elevated in patients compared with controls, while increases in immunoglobulin M and immunoglobulin G and other acute phase proteins were insignificant. Although the prognostic significance of immunoglobulin A needs to be further studied, raised levels of ceruloplasmin suggest impaired anti-tumor immunity. Furthering the Scalpel laboratory collaboration. When are you coming for your PhD? Said one of my teachers in the Department of Chemical Pathology. Since I was not thinking of a PhD, I wondered who he was referring to, and I did not respond. He then looked at me and said, "The sooner you start, the better." That day, I left the department thinking, PhD called PhD ni. Eventually, more than a year later, I concluded that it was the way to go since I wanted to improve my research capacity and knowledge in the basic sciences. In the course of the PhD work, we investigated some pro-inflammatory cytokines and their possible roles in disease staging among 30 newly diagnosed cases of head and neck squamous cell carcinoma. The level of interleukin 6 and 8 were significantly higher in cases compared with controls. Nasopharyngeal carcinoma was the most inflammatory tumor type, with levels of interleukin 6 and interleukin 8 higher than the mean recorded for all tumors. High interleukin 6 levels have been associated with increased risk of disease progression and shorter progression-free survival in cancers. While elevated interleukin 8 levels may not consistently correlate with poor prognosis in all cancers, they could be indicative of disease progression. Furthermore, we investigated the global, that is non-gene specific DNA methylation status in the same cohort using the serum level of 5-methylcytosine. The influence of risk factors, age, and gender on DNA methylation were also evaluated. We reported high 5-methylcytosine levels among cases relative to controls. There was no age-related difference in both groups involved in the study. However, gender had a significant association with 5-methylcytosine level. The influence of tobacco and alcohol on the level of methylation could not be determined, as majority of participants denied previous exposure. elevated level of 5-methylcytosine in cancer patients is associated with a variety of implications, including being a biomarker for poor prognosis and poor treatment response. We also assayed the serum level of single carbon metabolism micronutrients involved in the methionine cycle. We reported that the level of folate was significantly lower among cases compared with controls. The implication in prognostication, however, remains indeterminate, with more studies needed. These studies were conducted with a view to determining the diagnostic and prognostication values of the parameters that we studied. Conclusion: new dimensions, expanding the frontiers of cancer biology. In a recent publication, Hanahan 2022 went back to the hallmarks once more, after more than 2 decades, recognizing the significant progress made in the study of cancer through big data, reiterating the impact of the hallmarks in helping to distill the complexity into an increasingly logical science. The journey of over 2 decades from the first set of hallmarks to the last describes the complexity of the disease referred to as cancer and perhaps the lawlessness associated with it, which remains to be fully unraveled. Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, the cause of oral cancer in the Nigerian population are yet to be fully identified, as a significant part of the cases seen are practice denied exposure to the established and globally recognized risk factors, that is tobacco and alcohol. Although a major contributor in oropharyngeal carcinoma in the Western world, the role of human papillomavirus in the development of oral cancer in our environment is still to be determined. Moreover, while oral squamous cell carcinoma generally remains a disease of the elderly in the Western world, the Nigerian patient develops the disease at least a decade earlier, with peaks of late 40s reported in our population. Reasons for this are yet to be fully understood. Recommendations: since prevention is better than cure, for keeping the lawless away, diets rich in antioxidants and single carbon metabolism vitamins such as green leafy vegetables and fruits are advised, in addition to lifestyle changes, particularly the avoidance of tobacco use. In case someone is asking, what about alcohol, particularly when 1 glass of wine a day keeps the doctor away? Well, alcohol is classified as an upper aerodigestive tract carcinogen for oral cancer, for oropharynx, hypopharynx, and laryngeal cancers. Also noteworthy is the fact that the risk of developing these cancers are substantially higher, that is multiplicative, among persons who consume alcohol and also use tobacco. For alcohol, I recommend caution and moderation where abstinence is impossible. In the matter of HPV, it is my considered opinion that the oral cavity is not designed for fellatio and cunnilingus or any other type of oral sexual practices. Therefore, I recommend abstinence. The prognosis of head and neck cancer in our environment is rather poor, and therapeutic options of palliative, radio, and chemotherapy are often employed. Targeted therapy, a precision medicine approach to cancer treatment, which relies heavily on laboratory testing and research to identify specific proteins and genetic targets within cancer cells, is gaining recognition in the treatment for specific groups. Therefore, to address the lawlessness of the lawless, I advocate for a collaborative and synergistic approach that integrates surgical and clinical expertise and innovative laboratory research. Like Dr. Stephen A. Colley said, the intersection of surgical oncology and laboratory research is where the most innovative and effective cancer treatments are born. Acknowledgements. I wish to acknowledge God Almighty for all that I am. My appreciation goes to the Vice Chancellor and all the principal officers of the university, the Provost of the College of Medicine and his team, and my Dean, Professor B. Kolude. I am grateful to my parents, Dr. R.O. and Mrs. A.A. Akinmoladun. My father departed this world in 2011, but my mother is here in attendance. She's an 81-year-old girl. My immediate junior sister, Esther Adeyinka Alabi, with whom I shared my childhood, left this world through the lawlessness of this disease a few years ago. We all miss her. To my other siblings and their spouses, I am most grateful to you for your love and support. I also appreciate my uncles, Mr. Pius Akinmoladun and Professor Engineer Chief A.A. Aderoba, To all Akinmoladuns and Aderobas, my aunties and cousins and their extended family, I am most grateful. I appreciate my parents-in-law, Venerable Mama Joshua and Christy Adebamiwa, both of blessed memory. To my brothers and sisters-in-law and all the Adebamiwas and the Olamitis, I say thank you. Sir Folu Olamiti, you are most appreciated, sir. I acknowledge with thanks Professor N.O. Hollis and Professor S.A. Odusonya and others as listed for their roles in my career. I appreciate my senior and other colleagues in the department, faculty, and the larger College of Medicine and the university for their impact in my career. I must acknowledge in a rather special way Dr. Tio Aladelusi, whom I refer to variously as Timo, and at other times Timoplasty, for his versatility in clinical and non-clinical matters, among other reasons. All the radiologists within and without, I acknowledge you. I'm a radiologist by association. I appreciate all members of my department, clinical and administrative, all our UCH nurses and other healthcare professionals. I must extend courtesies to the current crop of resident doctors in the hospital, particularly my department, members of the various professional groups to which I belong, members of the Orofacial Tumor Board and the Pediatric Tumor Board of the University College Hospital, Ibadan. Many thanks to my principals, Professor T.O. Alunge and Professor J.A. Otegbayo, and other members of the UCH Board of Management 2016 to 2020 and the current leadership. I appreciate my coach and supervisor, Professor O.G. Arinola, for teaching me almost everything I know about immunology. Professor Oyegureje, J. Babalola, and other benefactors as listed. I am grateful. All my teachers in chemical pathology and immunology, Professor D.P. Katete of the Makerere University, Uganda, I am grateful. I appreciate all my friends and professional colleagues. I sincerely appreciate my own circle of friends and others as listed. Professor F.J. Owotade, with whom I have journeyed since 1978, Pali for life, and his amiable wife, I appreciate you. The Ginos, Professor Leke and Professor Mrs. Fadike Ogini, the Akinyamojus, Dayo and Clara, I appreciate you all. My spiritual family, my spiritual parents, other fathers and mothers in the faith, the Jesus Springfield family, the board and staff of the Redeemer's Health Center, thank you all. Special thanks to my research collaborators, staff of the Biomedical Communication Center, Felix Ohiwere, E-Learning Studio, and others as listed. I appreciate you all. Members of the Faculty of Dentistry Inaugural Lecture Committee, I appreciate you. Mr. Sheyi Mofolashayo, Paul Bayo Musa, from boys to men, and members of my household as listed. I appreciate you all. My wonderful daughter and girlfriend, Inioluwa Ann. I am most grateful for the joy of having you and for all that you are and what you represent. To my loving wife, Adetinukemi Anyike, my foremost collaborator, I am sincerely grateful for your support and encouragement over the years, and especially for the joy of sharing my life with you. To the eternal, immortal, invisible, the only wise God be all glory. Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, thank you for the honor.
Yìí ìgbọ́n ní ìpínlẹ̀ náà tó ń dùn. Ẹni tó ti bẹ̀rẹ̀ wọn.